Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation for my final project here as a student in the LIS department at UNCG. When I first entered the program, one of my earliest assignments was to create a professional values statement, and the goal of that was to figure out a set of ideals upon which I would base my library career. I ended up with a list of 4, including saving the time of the reader, being adaptive to changes, not making things personal, and always being professional. And after 2.5 years in the program, I can say these values haven't changed and are still front and center in my philosophies. But in addition to this, I've gained some new perspectives into what I feel it takes to be successful as a librarian. And now as I prepare to graduate and move on, it was time to update my professional values statement, and particularly when it comes to the LIS program's 8 student learning outcomes, or the SLOs. And I hope that by utilizing what I've learned in my experiences through the program, I can provide some insight into my thoughts on the field of librarianship. Alright, SLO number 1, the student assesses the philosophy, principles, and ethics of the library and information field. Trying to narrow down my personal philosophy basically depends on what type of library is being discussed, and my approach would be far different working in an academic library as opposed to a middle school library. But I have some beliefs that would remain constant regardless, and in my original statement I felt the most important goal was to save the time of the library user, and I still feel that way. This isn't a new idea. Ranganathan talked about it in 5 Laws of Library Science, and if providing information in a timely manner was important back then, even more so now. We live in such a fast-paced era. People want information, they want it now. But, having said that, getting information is useless if the information is inaccurate. Accuracy matters. We have to make sure that we get it right. As far as ethics goes, I look at censorship as a real battleground, I guess, for the coming years. And there's this constant debate, what should be allowed, what shouldn't, should certain items be censored, or should we let everything go? And it's a complicated issue. I don't know that there is one definitive answer, but in an overall sense, I agree with ALA when they say we have a special obligation to ensure free flow of information and ideas. If we automatically censored anything that anyone found offensive, we're not ensuring free flow of information. So, what it comes down to, though, for me, is that we have to use our own personal judgment in each case and try to be as impartial as possible. And I think it's important as librarians that we recognize that our job is not to force our own beliefs on the patron, but to allow patrons to make their own choices by having a wide variety of materials available. And SLO number 2, the student identifies, evaluates, conducts, and applies current research and thought in library and information studies and other fields. I really enjoyed my research-intensive classes here at UNCG. One of the things we learn really fast is that Google isn't everything. It's not a bad source. It's got a lot of stuff, but it doesn't have everything. And you get to learn about the wealth of sources that they have at the libraries. Certainly in our case at Jackson Library, we have a project where we had to answer a list of questions, kind of some obscure information, and you can't use Google or the computers, and so you have to look, maybe in some atlases or dictionaries or encyclopedias, and it's a real good practice to become more familiar with how to utilize those sources. And I was really able to, I think, improve my research skills during my time in the program. I wrote 2 lengthy papers, one on the history of the Chicago Cubs and that franchise, and also one on the famed composer Richard Rodgers, which opened my eyes to even more new sources because I had to utilize the holdings in the music library. So all in all, I think my research skills improved dramatically due to my time here in the LIS program, without question. Moving on to number 3, the student applies and values user education principles in the teaching of information literacy. According to ALA, information literacy is a set of abilities that require individuals to locate, evaluate, and effectively use the needed information. And in this modern era, we have a seemingly unlimited number of information resources, and being able to evaluate and distinguish the best ones, I think, is a very important skill to have. And, I had an early example of that. I had to evaluate a best practice educational program called Starfall, which was designed to instruct young children to read using phonics. And Right from the outset, this program challenged me to rate an educational program's principles and their degree of effectiveness, and in the case of Starfall, that turned out to be stellar. And in addition, I also had to create a wiki page for my collections management class to help increase a patron's level of information literacy. And the wiki consisted of some scholarly sources regarding preservation of film and television. And I knew from experience as an undergrad in the BCN department, Broadcasting and Cinema, here at UNCG, we had to write some papers on film and television, and many of my fellow majors had no idea how to distinguish scholarly sources from, live journal accounts. So I hoped that by providing a wiki page which listed several scholarly articles, guides, and other materials, that that would actually help students in their research skills and to be able to distinguish the good sources. Alright, and in SLO number 4, the student designs services to meet information needs of all users and communities. One of my experiences in this regard came early on in my time in the program when I attended the conference on disabilities. There was a young lady speaking who had a severe visual impairment and talked about, the frustration she had trying to access materials at her library, and that there were, computer programs and softwares out there that could help her, and they just weren't available. And really got me thinking and opened my eyes to the importance of equitable access for people with disabilities, and ensuring that the library has the programs necessary to where people with disabilities can utilize the library's holdings. For instance, that the library's website is friendly to people with visual impairments and compatible to screen reader software. So that's something that I'm going to be paying attention to in the future, and hopefully even be able to take a part of, perhaps if I get a job in an academic or public facility. I also think it's important to understand your patrons, and that sounds pretty obvious, but it is important. Recognize who your patrons are when you're designing services and determining what softwares you need. Obviously, if you're in a rural library with a predominantly elderly population, you're probably not going to need to get a lot of iPads and laptops and those sorts of items. And obviously, if you were working in a college or university, that is something you might want to focus on. So know who your patrons are and try to stay organized. Try to create a plan and set up to where materials are easily accessible and where they're supposed to be. It'll save you and your patrons a lot of headaches if you can keep things as simplified and organized as possible. In SLO number 5, the student engages in professional development and service and identifies specializations in related professional organizations as relevant to individual interests. It's obviously my hope that in the very near future I'm able to get a job either in an academic or public library. But regardless of where I end up, I think in order to be successful, it's really vital to keep on top of the latest trends and technologies, and therefore I feel it's imperative to subscribe to journals and read blogs and stay active on discussion boards. Technology seems to be adapting and changing on a daily basis, and so I think it's essential to stay informed and aware of recent developments. I also think networking is huge. Making and maintaining connections in the field, and when I attended Career Day here a couple of weeks ago, every speaker talked of the importance of networking. And just from experience, I can say I learned as much about librarianship through discussions with my fellow students as I did in any book. So obviously I think getting those relationships, maintaining them is critical, and I think joining organizations is also an excellent idea. I certainly plan on joining ALA as soon as I graduate, and hopefully down the line maybe attending a couple of conferences and just meeting people interested in the field, and I think we can all learn from each other. In number 6, the student applies appropriate technology for effective information services. I think it's vital that libraries embrace the latest technologies, and I remember reading a piece by R.S. Gordon where he said that technological change brings a need for new skills and a new way of looking at library services. And I think that's really true. I think accepting new technology is critical to being able to function in the modern world. We live in a digital age. We're always on the computer, whether we're checking our Facebook news feeds or posting on Twitter or watching YouTube videos. We're always online. And I really don't see how it's possible for a modern library to survive unless they embrace these social networking sites and other technologies. And I think UNCG has done a great job of recognizing this fact and sort of staying ahead of the curve. And they have an online presence on Facebook, and many of the individual library departments have their own pages. And in addition to these, there are people in the reference department that are available to chat online and assist students with research. And I think UNCG is doing a great job staying engaged with students and helping them if they may not be able to make the trek down to the library. In SLO number 7, the student applies advocacy, marketing, and communication principles for entrepreneurial leadership. Raving fans, raving fans, raving fans is really where I go in this one. That's really the story that made the biggest impression on me, and I think best fits this principle, especially in terms of marketing. The 3 rules: to know what you want, know what your customer wants, and deliver +1. The story just had a big impact on me. The cab driver who kept his vehicle spotless and offered drinks to his passengers and made what's a normally unpleasant experience quite enjoyable. And then there was the grocery store manager who was easily accessible to customers and insisted on employees providing impeccable service to shoppers. I think this book really stressed the idea of the value of each customer, and also indicated that the employees are also customers. So I would look at raving fans really as the gold standard in terms of marketing and really providing the best example of how to run a facility. And last but certainly not least, SLO number 8, the student effectively collaborates for the achievement of individual, organizational, professional, and societal goals. Teamwork and collaboration have played a huge role in my experiences here in the department. I had the pleasure of being part of many group projects over the past couple of years. And in addition to just having great teamwork, effective communication was absolutely vital and critical to the success of a project. I had a couple of experiences, one in particular, where our group had to collaborate on a needs assessment project, and that was a rather difficult endeavor, considering that 2 of our group members were in Charlotte and the other 2 here in Greensboro, so we couldn't meet face to face. But by consistently and constantly staying in contact, checking online, having discussions in the boards on Blackboard and those sorts of things, and it turned out wonderfully. And I think the project showed the best of what can occur in a group collaboration effort when everyone has a good attitude, stays in touch, and respects and listens to everyone's opinions. And just real quick, I'd like to talk a little bit about my future plans. Obviously, I certainly hope to work in an academic library, and especially in one of 3 areas of interest, and obviously reference, as I indicated before, still holds a special place in my heart. And I'm also interested in digital projects. I've been able to do that as a job here at Jackson Library the last several months, and I'm also interested in archives. So I'm very hopeful that I can get a position in one of those 3 fields. And so that brings a close to this presentation, but before I go, I just want to take a moment to thank a few people, certainly my professors, as well as my advisors, certainly Dr. Chow, who served in both roles, professor and advisor, was enormously helpful, as were Dr. Carmichael, Dr. Bird, Dr. Hershberger. Everyone along the way provided me with a lot of great advice over the years, and I certainly appreciate that. I'd also like to thank my fellow graduate students. I learned a lot from you all over the past few years, whether we were meeting in person or online, and I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors, and hope to see you all down the road sometime. So that concludes this presentation. Hope you all enjoyed it, and thanks very much for watching. Have a wonderful day. So long.